Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Samurai Goddess. The goddess next door takes on kung fu killers in this action-packed martial arts Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Samurai Goddess in paperback and e-readers today. I was watching Riverdale last night on the CW, and I saw something that was just appalling and downright disturbing. Now, on Riverdale, there's this big push for diversity, but what I saw on last night's episode showed me how passive aggressive these producers of these shows truly are when it comes down to diversity. Now, on Riverdale, they say that they're doing things to try to diversify the cast of the all white Archie Comics universe. And on the show, they have taken several characters who were once white and made them black, such as Pop Tate, the owner of Pop's Diner, and Josie and the Pussycats, and their related characters. They've made them all black. However, when it comes down to the one character that they needed to get right above all else, they pretty much screwed everything up. Now, in last night's episode of Riverdale, we were introduced to Chuck Clayton. And Chuck Clayton, for many years since the 1970s, was the only black character in Riverdale, him and his girlfriend Nancy. And after seeing how they adapted all these characters and pretty much stayed true to their spirit, in spite of the darker tone of this Riverdale series, I was hoping that they would do things right when it came down to this Chuck Clayton character. No, instead, they pretty much fumbled the football on this character. Now, when I look at the Chuck Clayton character that was presented on Riverdale last night, he was not true to the source material at all. And because he wasn't true to the source material at all, he wasn't acting like the character I knew from the comics, the friendly artist who loved to draw. No, they took that character and just decided not to adapt him at all the way he has been portrayed in the comics for the last 25 years. Instead, they decided to transpose parts of Reggie Mantle's character on to Chuck Clayton, and that pretty much to me was really done in a passive aggressive way. Because passively, the producers of this show are going out of their way to talk about how they're all about diversity by taking white characters and turning them black. But when it comes time to adapt the black character who is core to the Archie Comics universe, they decide they're not going to stick to the script. And because they don't stick to the script, they pretty much went out of their way to emasculate another black man on another Greg Berlanti production show. Now, on the Greg Berlanti production shows, the production shows such as Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, and Legends of Tomorrow, there's clearly a pattern of racism when it comes down to black male characters. Now, when I look at Supergirl and the way James Olsen has been emasculated over the last year and a half, and when I look at, the way that Jefferson Jackson has been handled on Legends of Tomorrow, and I look at the way John Diggle has been mishandled, and the way Mr. Terrific has been turned into a bumbling, stumbling idiot, and now I look at Chuck Clayton, I clearly see a pattern of discrimination against black men, and I clearly see a pattern of making efforts to emasculate black men on screen, because what was presented in last night's Riverdale was a way to emasculate this black man. And a lot of black people aren't going to see it, because in the episode of Riverdale, you have Chuck Clayton who goes out on a date with Veronica Lodge, makes out with her, and then lies on his penis by saying that he gave her a sticky maple when he did not. And in that storyline, what they were trying to do was say that Chuck Clayton was a pseudo-black brute in that he was lying on his privates, and then saying that he was a coward because he didn't have the backbone or the stones to pretty much do what he said he did. Pretty much, in a way, passive-aggressively emasculating the one core black male character in the Archie Comics universe. And then, as the episode goes on, we learn that he has done this to numerous white women. And when I look at that episode, it made me think about Bill Cosby and how the episode, in a way, Chuck Clayton was being turned into a cipher for Bill Cosby. Because I look at that episode and I look at the way they were talking about how Chuck Clayton was lying on these women and pretty much trying to tarnish their reputations. through some sort of cyberbullying campaign, and I clearly saw a way to try to get back at Bill Cosby in the undertones of that script. I saw it as a jab at Bill Cosby because this guy was not acting like Chuck Clayton. He was acting like the way the writers would want to do if they wanted to get even with Bill Cosby. And they were trying to make a statement about him, low key in this episode. And I could see right through that. And that's what disgusted me because, if you're a professional writer, and like I have been for over the last 20 years, you're going to try to keep your stories professional. You're going to try to keep your scripts professional. And you're going to try to stay as true to the source material when it comes to an adaptation. You're not going to take a character that's not supposed to be a certain way and then make them a certain way so that you can start using them for a soapbox for your opinions about a certain issue. And that's what I saw in last night's Riverdale. The Chuck Clayton character was being turned into a cipher to make a commentary about Bill Cosby and how people wanted to get even with Bill Cosby. And I looked at that episode later on when they talked about getting even with Chuck Clayton, and it clearly showed me, the the BDSM undertones, how they were trying to say something about how they wanted to emasculate this black man because they took him to a hot tub, and then they fed him a drink with muscle relaxers in it, and then after that they decided they were going to humiliate this man in the worst possible way. Again, in some low-key way, trying to show a way to get back at Bill Cosby in some way, shape, or form for those alleged assaults that were perceived. And that's what I saw in that script. A lot of people probably don't see what I'm seeing, but that's what I saw, presented in that script. And I was really offended by what they presented because clearly they weren't presenting the Chuck Clayton character as he was presented in the comics. Yes, I know it's adaptation, and adaptation, certain things change, like the colors of certain characters, and like the Black Josie and the Pussycats, the Black Pop Tape, the Black Mr. Weatherby, the Asian Reggie, and the Asian Reggie Mantle. But for you to take an entire character who is the only black male character in the Archie Comics universe, a black male character who has been core to the Archie Comics mythos since the 1970s, and not make that effort to present him as he is in the comics, that to me is offensive. And the way he was portrayed as a black brute with cowardly undertones, that pretty much was a slap in the face to every black Archie Comics fan such as myself, because this is the one character that Berlanti Productions needed to get right above all others. And instead of taking that priority and making that their best efforts to make this character the best they could be, instead they decided to transpose their feelings for Bill Cosby onto this character and not present him the way he was supposed to be presented. And I find that to be more racist than anything else, because in the face of all this diversity, we can get an Archie that acts like Archie, a Jughead that acts like Jughead, an Asian Reggie that acts like Reggie, a Black Josie and the Pussycats or a Black Josie that acts like the Josie and the Pussycats, a Mr. Weatherby, in spite of being black, who acts like Mr. Weatherby. But when it comes to the black character who's supposed to be who he's supposed to be, we don't get that at all. And that's an insult to many of these black Archie Comics fans, such as myself, who have gone out of their way to support this character, and we're looking forward to this series and seeing the one essential black character being portrayed the way he was supposed to be presented. Now, when it comes down to the Archieverse, I can see Reggie Mantle lying on his penis. I know that the Reggie Mantle character, this is what he does, this is how he operates, this is the thing that he would do above all else. But when it comes down to time to adapt Reggie the way he's supposed to be adapted, the producers decided to go and flip the script and make Chuck Clayton into this type of bad guy, when it really should have been Reggie Mantle, because the way he was acting was just like Reggie. And the sad part is, Reggie has been made into an Asian guy and stuck in the background when he really belonged in the foreground, and Chuck Clayton really needed to be presented the way he needed to be presented. And, I look at this scene in Riverdale in this episode, and that whole story, that's pretty much it's looking like one of the things that pretty much is going to put a stain on what looked like it was going to be a promising show. And it's one of the most disappointing episodes I had to watch all season regarding this series, because if you're going to talk about diversity and you're going to talk about making spaces for African Americans inside of comic book television adaptations, then go out of your way to stay true to the source material with the major characters in that series. Yeah, you want to make characters of color, but when it comes down to the character of color that's most important, stay true to the content of who they are. Chuck Clayton needed to be Chuck Clayton, not somebody's view on Bill Cosby presented on screen. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.